welcome everyone to our session today on Microsoft SharePoint use cases for finance professionals and accountants. And with that being said, I wanted to just start out here today. As Haley said, if you download that handout, you'll find all the information it is that I'm talking about here today. But I wanted to start out with really kind of talking about why SharePoint is actually beneficial to finance and accounting. Some of the things that you're going to find in SharePoint is it has a centralized document management system built in. There's one document library by default in a SharePoint site, but multiples can be added. They can be connected to other systems like Microsoft Teams, which the one I'll be demonstrating today is connected to another system, Microsoft Teams. We also can use other apps within a SharePoint site as well. So if you have an accounting system, a CRM system, etc., those could actually be connected into SharePoint. There is enhanced security and compliance capabilities within SharePoint. We'll talk a little bit about those today, and I'll show you where those can be accessed, depending on, of course, what your rights are with the SharePoint site. And then they also have workflow automation. Definitely an important part of managing what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis. If you have things that you want to automate, there's definitely a lot of choices that you'll find in SharePoint. We'll go through some of those, of course, here today. You can also get real-time reporting and insights by having different power tools built in, which can be available through your SharePoint site. You could be taking advantage of those power tools and doing different types of reporting, dashboard looks, and things like that through programs like Power BI. Also improved collaboration. SharePoint does integrate with the other applications of 365, specifically Microsoft Teams, depending on the type of site it is that you're actually using. I'll mention a little bit more of what all that means. But like I said, we can always be connecting to other devices. But when we have these files in that centralized document management, those files can be shared depending on what those permission levels are. Also, the audit tracking and version control capabilities built into SharePoint are absolutely fantastic. You'll see an example of how the version history and stuff is used in SharePoint and how you can manage that as well. So with all that being said, let's actually take a look at a SharePoint site. Now, I just have a test training site that I'll be demonstrating on today. Let me get to that. Here it is. So this is actually just a test training site called Accounting Department. You could see the name located at the top left. Now, of course, depending on what your department needs are and the capabilities of your overall structure of your other SharePoint sites, this Accounting Department site could actually be accessed through an intranet. So if your organization has a main hub of a SharePoint site where all members of the your company have access to, this could be a subsite of that hub site. This one is not. This one is a site that is all on its own. It was actually created in Microsoft Teams. I had gone to Microsoft Teams, created a new team, and called it Accounting Department. When I did that, it automatically created the SharePoint site, because in Microsoft Teams, you can't have a team without a SharePoint site. So just so you know, the two of them are very interconnected with each other. So what is a SharePoint site? Well, a SharePoint site is similar to what you would find on a website, a business website. You will have different images, you're going to have access to different information. So when I come into this accounting site, I can see that it has a little welcome, it has an image. It also includes a calendar where we can put any upcoming events or things that we need to have notices on. Or if you're working with taxes or anything like that, if you want to put a countdown, you could have something like that right on that SharePoint site, so that every time whoever the members of the site are, when they come and visit that site, you want to have the home page set up with things that are going to be useful that everybody would need to see. You can have quick links like I have over here. I have a couple of documents that I have quick links to. But as I scroll down, I could have a section that is related to news. I could have other quick links. I could have access to different documents in different ways. So the site can be set up to be a centralized location where everybody within your department or whatever permission levels it is that you set up will have access to. So when we think of the word SharePoint, share, of course, in the name of it, means we want to be able to have a central location to share information. So whoever has the editing capabilities within your SharePoint site, or whoever creates it, manages it, that kind of a thing, they can set it up with all the information that everybody would need to see. But one of the big parts of using SharePoint is that centralized document management. And I had mentioned that every SharePoint site has at least one document library. So when you look at my navigation on the left-hand side of the screen, I do have a link to my document library. So if I click where it says Documents, that's going to open the main document library. Now, just so that you're understanding the connection between Microsoft Teams and this SharePoint site, I do want to share my Microsoft Teams with you here just real quick, just so you can see. So here in Microsoft Teams, when I go to Teams on the left-hand side here, here's my accounting department team. And you can see that my accounting department team has all of these different channels. It has general, accounts payable, AR, business expenses, invoicing, etc. So when you go to any of those channels, each channel will have a shared tab on the top right. That shared tab is a document library. So whether I create this and use it directly within Teams, or if I go to the SharePoint site, I can access these files. So all files are available in SharePoint or directly within Microsoft Teams. So I happen to be on the accounts payable right now. So this is a list of all of the files and folders that I have in that document library in that folder called Accounts Payable. Now, if I take you back to SharePoint itself, you'll be able to see that I have that folder called Accounts Payable. If I click on that folder from my document library, it will show all of those same exact files that you saw a moment ago when I was in Microsoft Teams. So just so you see that connectivity between the two, because depending on what it is you're doing, one person could be in the SharePoint document library, somebody else could be in Microsoft Teams, going to that shared tab where they will have access to the files as well, which is great because we always want to be able to quickly and easily get to our information. But speaking about quickly getting to your information, when it comes to this document library, the document library is also going to be available through File Explorer. You can access things through OneDrive and File Explorer by simply going to the menu at the top when you are in a document library. Just a side note on this real quick. Everybody that has access to the SharePoint site has access to this document library unless we change the permissions. So in a little bit, I'll talk about the permission level side of things, but just so you can see on the menu at the top, this is the menu options for managing the entire document library. And one of the icons is called Add Shortcut to OneDrive. So it can give a shortcut, which I already have a shortcut to this, but just so you could see, I could add a shortcut directly to this accounts payable because that's what I'm in right now. But if I want to have access to the entire document library in OneDrive or File Explorer, without going to Teams or going into the SharePoint site, I could be at the main hub, or I should say the main menu of the Documents library, which right now at my top left it says Documents, which is the name of the document library. You can see I can do Add Shortcut to OneDrive. Now, I do already have a shortcut to that, so it's telling me it wasn't added because I already have it. But just so you're aware, all of the files and all the folders can now be accessed through OneDrive or File Explorer. So back in Microsoft Teams, just so you can see this, when I was in Microsoft Teams, if I go to the left-hand side and I open up my OneDrive, I will have my files on the left-hand side. And when I go to those, I can see all of the shortcuts that I have. Like this one is going straight to that accounts payable. So if I click on that, it's going to give us exactly the same files and folders that we saw in Teams and the ones that we saw in SharePoint. So just so everybody knows, it's an easy way to have, because you have multiple choices of how you want to get to things, which makes it better for the end users. Now, of course, any of these files can also be accessed by going directly to the application. So if I had an Excel file that I wanted to open or work with, I could go directly to Excel. And I could open up a file directly in a SharePoint document library like you normally would. You just go to open, and I have quick access to all these different SharePoint document libraries. Or I could simply go to my OneDrive from here. And of course, if I had a shortcut, I could always go to the shortcut right here through File Explorer. So just so you can see, you do get multiple ways to access things, which is great because then you don't have to worry about, oh, I have to go here and do something. It just makes it so much easier for very busy people like you. So just so you could see that. Now, I'm not really going to open up another file here, but just so you could see. And then when it comes to working in this centralized document management in SharePoint, what are some of the key features and what are you going to do in here? Well, these document libraries have a lot of great benefits. They have more benefits than a OneDrive or, of course, your File Explorer would have if you are saving files to a like if you had a network drive or you were saving things to your C drive, they can't be shared with other people like we can have here in SharePoint. We get live collaboration, we get definite security, and I'll show you some of that, but we also get the capability, and I'm going to go into this, I'm going to go into expenses. I'm going to go into this expenses. And I have a Word document that I added in recently. And if I want to manage that file, I can go directly this way and I could right click on the file or click the ... menu. And some of the key features of using these document libraries, especially for finance and accounting, is version control. So you can see from this pop-up menu, I have this option here for version history. So what this is going to do is allow you to see the different versions of the file. If you want to go back to a previous version, from this version history, you can click on the link under the modified column, and it will automatically open that version of that file. Sorry, it opened on my other screen here. Let me share that over here. So what you're going to see is underneath the ribbon at the top, it has this notification letting you know that this is a previous version. If you want to make this previous version become the latest version, you could actually click the restore. So if somebody else had gone in and made changes to a file, but you really want to go back to the previous version of it or any of the previous versions, you definitely have the capability of doing that. Now, can I only do that when I'm in SharePoint? No, because it is a file saved to the cloud, whether it's OneDrive or SharePoint, you do have that capability right within your application. So if I happen to be in a different Word document, I'm not in a version. So let's say that I'm actually in this particular document. And if I wanted to actually get version history, I could actually do so by going to the name of the file up at the top and click version history. It's going to open a pane on the right-hand side of the window showing me the different versions of the file, and we have that same capability as what you saw when I was actually in the SharePoint document library. So lots of ways to access that information. Now, I'm not really going to restore this at this moment. I'm going to go ahead and just close that because I'm going to talk about a couple of other features with this, but that's a huge benefit to have that version history because it is saved to a SharePoint document library. So other things that I want you to know about when it comes to working in a document library, besides, and I gave you all the instructions of how that version history can work, but there are version history settings. There's actually quite a few different settings when it comes to working in SharePoint. As I had mentioned, there's a lot of security as well. But depending on what your rights are with the SharePoint site, you may have access to the settings, which is the gears icon located at the top right corner of the SharePoint site. If you click on that gears icon, you'll see a menu of several different options. And I have an option here called library settings. If I open up library settings, you're going to see that I could change the name of the library. I could also give it a description. But what I'm going to do is click on this more library settings, and that will take me into a bigger window to give me other permissions and different settings that we can change with our document library. So you could see on the left-hand side at the top, excuse me, a tickle. It has the details and the web address for the document library, but then you're going to see where we have description, navigation, versioning settings, which is in your handouts. Version settings is actually located on page 3 of your handout. If you want to change how your versions are organized and what you're seeing and how many major versions do you want to keep, this is where you can go ahead and do that. These settings are on the right-hand side of the screen. Require content approval for submitting items, create a version each time you edit the file, and do you want to create major and minor versions, what kind of version time limit is set, those kind of things. If you do make any changes to this, make sure that you click OK at the bottom right. Sometimes people, because we think cloud-based, everything gets saved by default, but these do not get saved by default. So if you do make any changes, you will want to scroll all the way down the window and make sure that you click OK to keep those settings. So just so you know, that is something that you can do as well, as long as you have the rights to be able to modify those types of settings. But on the right-hand side, there's different permission levels that we can have in a document library, which is a huge asset of working with SharePoint. So if I click on permissions, you can see that I can have department members, which could be everybody in the department. We could also have department owners and department visitors, because maybe we have an outside person that does the tax work or whatever the case might be. You could have a group of people that aren't necessarily part of your department. You also have the department owners, which would have full rights to all things. So just so you could see on the right-hand side, it's showing those current permission levels. So when members are added, or owners and visitors are added to the site, we can actually put them into these different categories, and that's the permission levels that they will have. So visitors only have read write. They cannot make changes to the files by default. But anybody that's a department member, they would actually have access to being able to edit, but just the owners can make all changes to the SharePoint site. So just so you could see, we have that strong permissions built right in to SharePoint, not with just the site itself, but down to that document library. Now, of course, on an individual file, you could also have different permission levels, depending on, of course, the file and the settings that you want to have. But just so you're aware of the fact that we have those different capabilities. So I think that those are huge assets for definitely working in SharePoint. Okay, so a couple of other things that I wanted to mention. And by the way, the permissions are located on page 4 of your handout. But besides having the capability of doing version history on a file, we also have the ability of checking a file out. This can be an important feature because let's say that you have an expense report or an expense form and multiple people have access to it because multiple people are filling the form out and submitting their expenses, whatever the case might be. You could actually go to that file and check it out. If nobody else is in it at the moment, you would be able to go ahead and check the file out. And what that means is that it locks the file so that other people cannot go in there and make any changes. So it's going to prevent people going in and editing at the same time as you. Otherwise, by default, all files can be edited by multiple people at the same time. But if you want to make some major changes to something without other people being in it, your best bet is to check the file out. So if I go to this Word document called expense form, I'm going to right click on it again like I did a minute ago. And at the very bottom is this more category. From the more category, I'm going to click checkout. From the checkout, you can see that I now have this red circle next to it, and so others will see that as well, and they'll know that this file has been checked out by me. But if I go in now and open that file, make my necessary changes to it, nobody else is going to be in there with me being able to make any changes. Now, just so you know, they could actually open the file, but it's only going to be the previous version of the file. They can't see what I'm doing, or they can't make any changes to it at the time. So just so you can see, I've got this expense form. And if I want to make any changes to it, maybe I want to add another row to it where they can type in expense category or whatever it is that they need to add in. So we can come in, we can make the changes that we need to without anybody else being in there with us at the same time. Just so you can see, I'll make a couple of changes. So once I'm all done, because of the fact that it's saved to a cloud, it is automatically saving my changes. So I'm just going to go ahead and close it. And I still have this file checked out. I need to go back and check it back in so that others can now use it. So I got all the changes done to it. I'm going to go back and right click on it again. I'm going to go, oh, I'm sorry. I just meant to hesitate. I could go back and right click again, but just so you could see a shortcut to that is if you hesitate on the name of the file, you will see that in this pop-up little window, it actually will give you a checkout. So if you click checkout, you would get the capability of typing in any notes about what it is that you did when you had the file checked out. So maybe I want to say I updated the year to 2026, made whatever changes to it. Then when I click check in, it will become available for others to be able to use. And they'll be able to go in and make their necessary changes, those kind of things. Sorry, Haley. Did somebody have a question?
We do have a related question, actually. Someone is asking, can you check out whole folders or just individual documents?
Individual documents. Okay, good
Perfect.
question.
Thank you.
All right. So that's a great feature. Now, what just happened? So when I typed that comment in, I went in there and made changes to it. That created another version. So let me go back into the version history that I was in a minute ago. So if I go back to this file and I do my right click again, I'm going to click on version history again. I have another version of that file because I was just in it. So of course it creates that version. And my comments that I typed in are going to show up on the right-hand side in the comments column. So just so you could see, that is an option that if you put in comments, other people will be able to see them, just so you know. It stays with the file. And because this is available for everybody by default, just so you're aware of what's going on with that. But there are some other great benefits in SharePoint that I want to get to. So I'm going to go back to this file again. And let's say that I got the expense form all finished, but now I need to get it approved before we start having everybody use this expense form. I can go back to that file and I can actually use one of the built-in automation features. So huge benefit of using SharePoint is having power tools behind the scenes that we could be creating these automated workflows so that we don't have to manually be doing things. So if I go to this automate, you can see that I can actually have flows, I have rules, and I have quick steps. I'm going to start with talking about flows. So we have this built-in workflow called a request sign off. I can take a file and have it be sent via email to somebody else and have them review it and then let me know if they approve or reject the file. And it actually has a column that it adds in right back here. You can see the column called sign off status. So it will actually show the status, whether it's pending, if it was approved or if it was rejected, and it tracks the approved or rejected right within the version history as well. So if somebody approved it, we'll actually have a version stating in the version history window saying that it was approved or rejected. So that's great because it's date and time stamped as well. So all we have to do is say, who do we want to have this sent to? Now, I'm going to play both parties of this just so you can see what happens. I'll put in a note, please review this expense report or expense form, blah, blah, blah. Oops, I didn't spell that correctly. And then all I have to do is click Run Flow. Now that's a super easy workflow to use that is readily available for anybody to use within SharePoint, any SharePoint document library. Now, what exactly is happening in the background? Well, I got an email. I received an email message in my Outlook letting me know that I have this file that I need to review. I also got notified in Microsoft Teams. So if I go back here and show you my Microsoft Teams window again, you can see that I now have an activity. And that activity is letting me know that Jolynn Reen sent a request. So it's giving me, please review the expense report, and then here's what I typed in. Please review this expense form. Here's the form itself. So what I would do as the person that it was sent to is I would open up the file, do my review on it. I can come back here then or in Outlook and I can say any comments that I want in the bottom of this window. And then I click either the reject or the approve. So I'm going to say this form can be sent to SharePoint, because maybe we're going to have it as a shortcut right on the SharePoint site so people can click on it. So then I'm going to click approve and it automatically will process that that was approved. So it's doing, and just so you know, it's actually using 5 different apps in the background. It's using SharePoint, it's using Outlook, it's using Microsoft Teams, it's using notifications, and it's using an app called Approvals. So it's doing a lot in the background because workflows need a lot of steps usually. So anyway, just so you can see, because I'm playing both parties, I also got an activity notification letting me know that it was approved. And by the way, I also would be receiving a banner notification at the bottom right of my screen. It does that by default also. But I did get an email too. So 3 different places or ways that it will actually notify you. And then, of course, let you know if it was approved or rejected. And then back into the document library again, you can see that this status or the sign-off status column now says approved. So in the meantime of all of that, it actually said pending. So you would be able to go to a document library and see if anything is pending approval. So great that we have that capability. So SharePoint so far, as you've kind of seen, does have a lot of benefits. So if your organization is currently not using SharePoint, so far what you've seen have been some great reasons why you should be using it. But a couple of others that I wanted to mention, we do have the capability of adding additional columns so that we can have different ways of searching or organizing our information by using what is referred to as metadata and content types. This is on page 4 of your handout, by the way. We have the capability of going to a document library like this where we have different columns, and we can add a column. So we can click Add Column, choose the type of column it is that we want to add. Like, let's say that we want to have a date that a file needs to be reviewed. we could add in date and time. So if I choose add column and I choose the type of column I want to be date and time, I can click next, give the column a name. So let's say that this is going to be our approval date. I could put in a description, I could change the type, I could say I want to include the time and I want a friendly format, those kind of things. I could have a default value and I could say that if I want it to be today's date, whatever. Once you're done, you click save and it now has added that column to be available that people would be able to add in that metadata. So that's a great benefit to have with Microsoft Teams or with SharePoint document libraries. Okay. Also, the integration with other Office apps in a SharePoint site. So this SharePoint site is directly connected to Teams. But as you saw, I could also be connected to Microsoft Outlook, and there's other apps we can use as well, like Microsoft Planner. Haley, did we have a question come through?
We did, Jolene. Thank you so much. So this is a question from Stephanie. So is this strictly for internal use, or would it be beneficial if you had the security permissions to send documents to clients for signatures, for example?
As a matter of fact, they have to have. So could I send a request sign off to somebody outside of my organization? The answer technically is yes, you could, because of if you have rights to be able to send to somebody outside of your company, you could. You also could have a folder and or a file that is actually shared with external people. So everything that you have in your SharePoint document library is available to everybody that's a member of the site. And one of those members could be a visitor. That visitor could actually be added to your system so that they become a member where they could edit. But otherwise, by default, all external people would be a visitor with no editing capabilities, just read only. Okay.
Okay.
That was a good question. Absolutely. So other things to kind of be thinking about with that integration to other applications, when we were back here on the home page of your SharePoint site, we could have access to anything. So any other application could be added into this. We could actually have a form, a Microsoft form, right on a SharePoint page. So we can have quick, easy access to other Microsoft apps and other programs as well, especially when we start integrating things like Power BI and things like that. But I do want to spend some time here talking more about workflows, because workflows are a big part of managing documents. When we talk about, whether it's SharePoint document libraries or network drives, etc., you're not going to get the same capabilities. There's really no apples to apples. It's definitely apples and oranges with that. But in SharePoint, we have so many different capabilities. The request sign-off is only one small part. We have other automation that we can do, and it can either be related to the entire document library, to a specific file, whatever your case might be. Now, how do we access that? Well, let's say that you're actually, and I'm going to go back into the document library here, but let's say that you're actually responsible for everything in the expenses folder. This is your folder of all of the things that you need to have available. If you look at the menu going across the top, there's this automate. If you click automate, you'll see that same menu when I did the right click and I went into the flows and I did that request sign off. Well, if I'm in a document library, now remember that I added that approval date. If I come into automate flows, this is setting something up for this entire folder that I actively am in. So I could actually set a reminder. And when I hesitate on set reminder, it shows me the date field that I just added. So if I want to go in and set up a workflow that says, once I reach that approval date, I want to, if it's 7 days before that date, I want to get a notification. Haley, I'll go ahead and get your question here before I finish this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. The question is related to the approval process. So is there anything within the document after it's been approved to like evidence that it's been approved, like sort of for accounting purposes or something like that, something that it's been approved right within the document itself?
No, not
Visually, I
within the
guess.
document, just within that version history, which technically is a part of the document, but it doesn't like put a stamp on it or anything
Yeah.
like that, to like Adobe Acrobat does,
Yeah.
where you can, put that approval or approved stamp on it. It doesn't have that capability, no.
Okay, perfect. I hope that
But
was what they
you,
meant in the question.
yeah, but you can actually see that column that
Mhm.
shows that it was signed off, that it was approved. So
Yes,
that's a visual representation also to show that.
perfect.
Okay,
And sort of a follow-up question quickly.
sure.
Can you download with version history?
Take a screenshot of it, but yeah, unfortunately, you can't like download it to a file or anything like that.
Okay.
Okay,
Awesome. Thanks, Jillian.
you bet. So under this automate flows, set a reminder, it knows that I had created that date column, so I can choose approval date. So what that's going to do is open up the workflow on the right-hand side. So these are the built-in automation tools that we have directly within SharePoint that we don't have to manually create, which is great. So you could see first that it's actually making sure that I'm signed into the right applications, which the last one that I did, that request sign off, did the same thing. So I have to be connected to SharePoint, I have to be connected to notifications, and of course my Microsoft account. So once it actually verifies my account with that, it will give me the ability to click continue where I can continue setting this up. And I can then state, how do I want to receive a notification, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to click continue. And the flow name would be first. So I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it as, get an email reminder, remind me this many days in advance. So if I want a 7-day reminder, I'm going to do that 7 days. So whatever date is entered in that column, 7 days prior to that, it's going to send me an email. I just click create and it automatically is created. Now that did not give me the capability of saying someone else, just so you know. But I'll show you where you could do that if you wanted to. So it's letting me know that that workflow has been added successfully, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, just so you could see that, I could go ahead and have that be set up so that we can get that notification as that date approaches, which is pretty super. Definitely advantage being in SharePoint. But speaking of other advantages and some other workflow capabilities that we have in SharePoint, SharePoint also, of course, has other options under that automate, and it can be based on a file or an entire folder or document library. So let's say that I have this whole document library. So I'm back on documents again, so I want to manage the whole document library. It could be based on just the accounts payable, the expenses, or I could right click and go to a file and do the same thing. So let's say that for this whole entire document library, I want to set up an automation to be notified if somebody makes a change to a specific document, or if it's a document, I would go to the document, but if they make a change to any of the properties of this file, like if somebody changes the sign-off status date, whatever the case could be, I could go back to automate on the top menu. And from there, I could go to rules. And from rules, I'm going to click create a rule. And you get 4 choices by default. I could say take action when a file or metadata is modified. So like if that date gets modified, that's metadata. So I would get notified. A new file is added, a file is deleted, a date is approaching. So that date is approaching. I want to show you that one because I can then say enter the number that many days before, then I choose the date and it knows that that's the only date column that I added in. And then who do I want it to be sent to? Do I want it to be sent to me or who created the file or who modified the file? I can actually choose others. So we could put in whoever we want it to be sent to. Just so you know, that's a little bit different than the one I showed you earlier. Now, I'm not going to use that one again, but just so you could see it. So another option would be if a new file is added or a file is deleted. if a file is deleted, I might want to know that because by default, there is a recycle bin for the document library, but that recycle bin does automatically delete itself, cleans it out. It's defaulted at 93 days, but it could be changed individually for each document library. But I'm going to say a file is deleted. So when a file is deleted, send an email to, and I could choose who do I want the email to go to. Now I'm just going to say I want it to go to myself. I could put in a custom message. A file was deleted in, oops, deleted in the expenses or whatever folder I happen to be in or what I was creating it for. All I have to do then is click create and it automatically creates that workflow. Having these types of things built into SharePoint is such a huge benefit. We don't have to worry about all the details of how this workflow is being created in the background. We have the capability of just using them. It's already set up. Now, what it did by default was also gave you a list of all of the different rules. It opens up what is called manage rules. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and close that. Now, I could be getting the same type of automation options by going into a folder, going to a file. So like if I go to this file called 2026 sales data, if I do a right click, I can hesitate on automate. When I go to automate, I have my flows, which would give me my request sign off, and I'm getting set a reminder because of the fact that this document library now has that metadata column that was not there before. I added that column. But also we have access to the rules. So I could set up a rule just on an individual file. But we also have this last one called Quick Steps. If I go to Quick Steps and click Create a Quick Step, it brings you into another window, allowing you to create what type of an action it is that you want to do. So first it says, for the selected file, once you select one or more of the files in the document library, your quick step will be available where you can automate processes. So anyway, I could say if something happens on this file, draft an email. I could say execute a different flow that had already been created because I could have multiple flows that I say, run this flow and this flow. I could start a Teams chat, move a file to a folder. I could set a value, and that value could actually be set based on that metadata column that I have. So I'm going to choose that one just so you could see what this actually gives you. It's like a little wizard where it's giving you, fill in the blank choices. So first it says show a command that will, for each selected file or folder, sets a value in, and then you have to choose which column you want it to be based on. So I want it to be based on if the approval date changes or if the sign-off status changes, whatever you choose, then you can say what value. So to the saved information, to the expenses. So, and I was working with expenses, so I'll choose expenses. Now, if I wanted to add another column, I could. Otherwise, down below, you need to give the step a name, and I'm going to choose, excuse me, I'm going to name it sign off status and then simply click create. Then it will automatically have that available, turned on and ready to be used. These are all considered commands, or I should say automation workflows that are going to happen automatically based on a trigger of an action happening. But we have so many other great benefits of using things in SharePoint that I could spend 2 more hours with you going through some of these, but I do want to talk a little bit more on some of the automation just very briefly here. Let me get my mouse back over on the screen. I'm going to close this Manage Quick Steps. And just so you could see, you could go into your Power Automate application. As long as you have the rights to go into Power Automate, you could actually create a manual workflow. I shouldn't say the word manual because workflows are automated processes. So under page 7, no, 8, 9, 9, 10, I've got a couple of additional options for you for automating. This is where you could actually create a workflow that says whatever you want it to do. So one way to create it on this home category from the left-hand side, you could just physically type in a description of what it is that you want the Copilot to do. So like if I wanted to have um, every time an email comes in that has the subject of invoice, I wanted to automatically take the attached file in that email and save it to the folder in the SharePoint document library called invoices so that it's automatically going there. And then you could have another workflow that is set up that says when a file is added, you get a notification. So there's a lot of, different ways that you can be using this. So we could just physically type in. So I have send an email for changes by others to a SharePoint list item or file. So if I want to do that, so if I have anytime somebody does a change to a specific file, I want to get notified. I could put that in as a description, whatever it is that you want, click generate, and it's going to automatically create the workflow, but you still have to fill in some blanks. It doesn't always give you everything that the workflow is going to need. But what it did was it gave you a suggested flow. So this is an AI suggestion, automated suggestion. So when a file is created or modified, where I'd have to put in the properties of that, get my profile, it has a condition, and then it's going to send an email. If I want to keep it and continue, I can do that. It automatically has to be connected, of course, to my different options. And then on the right-hand side, it's showing the trigger. And if I were done, if I didn't have anything else that I needed to add in, I could go ahead and click Create Flow. But there's a lot more to this Power Automate and creating these workflows that will take a lot more than the hour that we have here today. So I won't go through all of that detail, but just so you can see, if I click Create Flow, it automatically takes me into the grid view, which is actually the design view, and it's showing me each of the actions. And you can see that it says invalid parameters, so it didn't have all the details. Just because Copilot created it doesn't mean that it knew all the details. So I could click that to open the pane on the right-hand or the left-hand side to fill in the blanks of what is missing from the actual rules of what it's going to do. Now, I'm not going to go through all of that with you here today. We could have a whole class just on creating workflows, but just so you get an idea of how they could be created. Because we don't always have built into SharePoint, we don't have every scenario of what it is you might need. The main ones are there. Under that automate that I showed you, we've got some main important features, but it doesn't give you everything. So another option would be, if I came in and asked it that I wanted to send an email for changes by others in a SharePoint item or file, I could do it this way as well, where I could have gone over to create, chose it, which I'll show you that window in just a second. And then here it's going to give me a drop-down menu where I actually can then choose what is the SharePoint document library I'm working with and what is the name of the file or the library that I want this set up for. Then I can just click create. So there's some easier processes, easier ways to get to creating a workflow as well. But this once again is going to open it, tells me my flow is ready to go. So this is the actual window that once you have a flow, you open it. This is the window that you can see the details of it. And if you needed to modify it, you can. You can also turn it off and you can see a different menu going across the top. I can even share it with other people so that they could use it. But on the left-hand side, under the Create category, this is where we have different templates that you could start with to actually build your workflow. These are showing you the power behind SharePoint because there's so many different things that you could actually do. Like notify a chat when planner tasks or status is a change. I can just search as well. but I could choose from these different template types, like if it's going to be a notification I want to receive, or I have an approval I want to receive, or whatever your case might be, you could always do these as well. You have a lot of different options. Or on the left-hand side, I could simply go to templates. Templates are going to show you all the individual templates that are available that you could start without starting from scratch. These are templates that you could use. Now here, I would most likely just search, and if I want anything that is SharePoint related, I could just type SharePoint, and it's going to narrow my list down to anything that is related to SharePoint. So let's say that I want to save email attachments to a SharePoint document library. I can click on this and it's automatically going to take me into the window showing me these are the apps it needs to connect to. I click continue once it's connected. Then it takes me into my grid, my design view, basically, where we have to fill in the blanks. So we basically have to say, okay, on an email, when an email comes in, does it have to have an attachment? I could come in and I could say, yes, it has to have an attachment. What's the importance level? Only with attachments. Is it coming into my inbox or is it going to a different folder? Then I have to go to the next step. Then I have to go to the next step, etc. And we have to really fill in the blanks. And that's where sometimes regular end users don't always set these up because we don't always know the parameters that it's looking for within these. So sometimes we will need the assistance of IT, just so you're aware. But it's great to have that capability behind the scenes of working in SharePoint. So back to SharePoint one more time. I do want to talk about the enhanced security and compliance, which is in your handout on page 10. Where it's talking about some different security measures that we have. I've already shown you that we could be in a document library. We can get our library settings and we can change the permissions. We could add an individual person and say that this person only has rights to do this, that kind of a thing. Those are great. But I did list in your handout some other additional tools that we have, like with Purview. Those are probably going to be more IT or whoever the administrator is, where they have to go in and they could be setting up the multi login capabilities that you have, your MFA, I should say, in your admin, so that we are being authenticated correctly for going in and working with a file. There's different compliance policies and retention capabilities that we can be putting into PeerView compliance portal. There's audit logs and activity monitoring that we can get out of our admin account for Microsoft as well. So there's so many things that are capable of being used that can be extremely important when it comes to finance. The real-time reporting and insights, we could be having Power BI be set up as well. I'm not going to demonstrate of course, that here today, whole nother session for that. But that would be another option to have as well, where right on the SharePoint homepage, you could actually have that report, that Power BI report, automatically live, where things could be being updated. Those can be some very important things to have when you are using a SharePoint site. But having the capability of the collaboration, having the audit trails, that version history and things, to me, those are so key to have within a SharePoint document, or to have within a SharePoint site in general. So many different things that you can be utilizing. So as we kind of think about overall, why would I ever want to use SharePoint? Document libraries itself is the best benefit. To me, that is one of the main reasons we have a SharePoint site, is to have that shared capability with our document libraries, have those permission settings and that Power Apps capability with all the different workflows and everything. So for me, it's not a question as to where should my files go. I just know that SharePoint is definitely going to be my answer because it is the most powerful. Okay, so Haley, I'm going to send it back to you. Did we have any other questions that have come through?